Okay, started.
How many sheets for the one I see?
Only one.
Okay.
Did you send it?
It's not sending for some reason. I'm gonna try connecting to my hotspot.
No, that's still, I was just wondering if it was a problem with my computer.
Just not what it says. Megan, can you try from your computer?
Mm-hmm.
I just put the exact version to drop.
Okay. I don't have their emails, bro.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it sending?
It's sent. I have it.
There's a trigger warning at the top. Just read it and make sure everything's okay. Is anybody not ready? Sweet. Security and surveillance procedures create dichotomies in which non-normally presenting bodies are regarded as threats, and the concealment of weaponry means of regulations to stay the idealized image of the cisgender heterosexual white body that acts as a model of inclusion that creates more categories for classification. Bullshit 19. Government scares use a generic outline of a body. Anything suspicious is marked the use of a standardized generic bodily image supports normalization processes by which certain bodies are marked as deviant that helps solidify whiteness and heterosexuality as the normal, attempts to standardize bodies through marking out of anomalies, sorting bodies toward the goal of national security and circulation as certain bodies as violent to stabilize the notion of safe bodies by what measurable bodies be identified as transgender and how might they apply or not to non-transgender bodies interpreted as gender non-conforming security practices aims to incorporate some transgender people more fully into TSA's embrace a move that also strengthens the efficacy of screening measures. Anxiety is the potential to open up different questions about non-normative bodies that position them not as fixed but as active interpretation that can shift according to context. And we're making the creation of weaponry inextricable from the manipulation of orgasmic desire through pharmacopornographic capitals. These technologies majoring embargo errors such as spandex, the pill, and rigid classification of gender don't merely build substances but become them by literally grafting them onto the flesh. Presiano 13. 4. The perfected specific mode of production, consumption, and discontinuous flow, desire, and resistance, new cartography of the transformations and production during the previous century using an access to political management of the body, sex, and identity, world economy. How did sex and sexuality become the main options of political and economic activity to advance technology during the Cold War? The U.S. put more money into scientific research about sex than any other country. Necropolitical techniques of the war will progressively combine political industry for producing and controlling sexual subjectivity. The intervention of the hormone for commercial use radically modified traditional definition of pathological sexual identity. Jorgensen was transformed into Christine, the first transsexual person discussed widely the contraceptive pill, the enabling the separation between heterosexual practice and reproduction. The Cold War was also a period of transformation concerning pornography. Hefner found a Playboy porn film production boom. The pharmaceutical industry looked for ways of trigger erection using surgical and chemical prosthesis. Techniques were first developed within the military, were extended to medical use for the civil population. The cyborg named new techno-organic conditions subjected to new forms of political control, but also able to develop new forms of resistance treatment of World War IV. The handling of weapons of the victims of the nuclear bomb will be transformed into cosmetic sexual surgery. We will be converted with a new kind of hot punk capitalism. World economy dependent on this production, circulation of steroids, and porn. Technoscience establishes material authority by transforming the concepts of the libido, heterosexuality, and homosexuality into tangible realities, transforming our depression into Prozac, our masculinity into testosterone, our erection to Viagra. We live in a punk hyper-modernity. Capitalism does not produce things, it produces desires. And pharma-pornographic industry rely on the pornification of other bodies to sustain themselves. The body is reduced to a form of naked techno-life and is moved to become an object of mass exploitation within these forms of capital. Presiano 13. Potentially identity, the real or virtual strength of a body's total excitation has no gender, neither human nor animal. Orgasm force applies only to his own extension. Capitalism tries to put to work the potential identity as a pornographic representation. Orgasm forces both the most abstract and the most material of all work forces. The body is a techno-living entity, neither an orgasm nor machine, but fluid techno-bodies are either not yet alive or already dead. The individual body functions like an extension of global technologies. Communication is no longer a question of power of a but power exerted over a connected whole cyber furniture such as race or the offspring implosions of such an object. Every techno-body can unleash an orgasmic force. Theorists are interested in the possibility of making the subject an inexhaustible supply of planetary ejaculation that can be transformed into abstraction, into digital data, into capital powers. Okay, not only the body but also the representation that renders sexual and desirable distinctive feature of a body reduced to naked techno-life is precisely the power to be the object of maximum pharmacopornographic exploitation and an exhaustible manner of ejaculatory capital. The African population infected with HIV isn't really sick. The thousands of seropositive people who die each day are precarious bodies whose survival is not yet being capitalized. Their life is likely to produce an ejaculatory benefit excluded from the regime. And to combat the pharmacopornographic conflict, the resolution, and other war-making practices of hold, we must engage in practice gender hacking to reclaim control of the biocodes held hostage from queers. And only through a method of self-experimentation can we engage in ongoing political practice needed to dismantle pharmacopornographic network. Self-materialization is key. We must preserve our scholarship in the face of potential repressors. Presiano 13. Your body, the pharmacopornographic networks that constitute them are political laboratories. I am pleading for physical experimentation that will be regulated by the auto guinea pig. During the Inquisition, thousands of books were destroyed. The theoretical political innovation produced during the past 40 years, the context of global war could be destroyed as indispensable to transform minority knowledge into collective experimentation. We are pleading to use discursive production as a stakeholder in a wider process of the technical materialization of life that is occurring upon it until the end of the 18th century. Self-experimentation was still part of research protocols of pharmacology. The subject of scientific learning progressively attempt to generate knowledge outside self. It seems urgent to use our living bodies to biopolitical platforms to test the pharmacoporno-political effects of synthetic sex hormones in an era in which pharmaceutical corporations are regulating gender sex biocodes. We must reclaim the right to participate in the construction of biopolitical fiction. The auto guinea pig principle would be critical to constructing the practice of common liberation movements of gender, sexual, racial, and semantic political minorities. Anyone wishing to be a political subject will begin by being the lab in his or her own laboratory. And gender hacking is a biological copyleft program which garners access to techno-biocodes held hostage by the pharmacopornographic state. By infecting ourselves gender signifiers, we radically decode our body and disidentify from the politics representation. Press the other 13. Queer consumers uses living laboratories all get access to biocodes as property. Entrepreneurs are trying to privatize biocodes. Hackers use copying programs tool distribution. The gender copy left movement has the technical living bodies of biopolitical archive and cultural prosthesis. Gender copy left strategy must be minor but decisive. It will be our responsibility to shift the code to open the political practice to multiple possibilities. The book is a protocol for self-test carried out with testosterone gel for the administration of testosterone has ceased to be a simple political test and has morphed into discipline. Hormones are political drugs. The substance radically modifies the body and the mode under which we are decoded by other. My gender does not belong to the state or pharmaceutical industry. Gender must be torn from the macro discourse. Disidentification is a condition for the emergence of the political as a possibility of transforming reality. And politics is a living death march. We've moved beyond the point of a shared ideal for life. Our society has been overcome by a form of snuff politics which transforms death into marketable representations. We must realize that no one will come to save us from inevitable extinction. All that's left is to imagine an auto-porno punk modernity. Title 13. The sudden emergence of the punk movement was the last loose explosion of the human species. The pleasure seek that's death and seek no cultural production has entailed such a punk dimension as much as snuff has transforming into public marketable representation. Snuff refers to the performative power of representation to modify reality. Snuff offers image filmed by soldiers, execution of prisoners, and the execution of Hussein. Politics has become snuff discrimination by and for representation of the future of the politics, rip away everything from life to the point of death and fill the process, distribute and make it permanently accessible. Our species has literally stuck our good philosophical intentions up our ass. We might profitably learn to doubt our fears. We might learn to live without the bracing discourse of salvation. No one will come to save us from our inevitable disappearance. And trans experiences are brutally micromanaged within academia due to the prevailing idea that the trans experience is rarity. Positioning yourself against this kind of thinking and view your role as a judge as to question how debate reproduces gender roles and polices trans bodies. Speed 10. I call it one to share a surprise that so many people like that exist. The idea that trans experience is a rarity in medical conditions, common invisibility, hypervisibility, contributes to trans subjection, allowed them to justify expecting trans people to request accommodation rather than understand the ways their classroom practice assume and reproduce gender norms in ways that exclude participation. These stories are moments of identity management that are purportedly need to be meritocratic, inclusive. My experiences always require management mentors, socialize me through brutal advice. Don't seem like an activist, don't make people uncomfortable, don't talk about gender roles, don't advocate for community, talk about the issues if you're not impacted, assuming the absence of trans people in academia is a coincidence. The demands of framing my work to be standards were perplexing. As someone whose survival felt unguaranteed, for choosing to follow rules seemed absurd. I am supposed to be afraid to do my work in ways I desire. Our experiences are an account of how the universe transforms to preserve the status quo. Diversity rhetoric has not eliminated the gender tenure divide. The cleverness, neoliberal co-optation has been that the progress narrative that invokes of legal equality, paper over wealth divide, militarization, and abandonment are existent for the fairness. Our bodies are screens for the myth of meritocracy to project itself upon. Meanwhile, the internal disciplining of the university tames us sufficiently. Just 23 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the role of the negative?
The role of the negative is to prove the 1AC is bad.
Okay, so I guess what is the 1AC going to defend?
1AC defends gender hacking.
Okay, gender hacking. So what does it mean to prove why gender hacking is bad? Is it just like...
you can prove that it's capitalist, you can prove that it's anti-black, you can prove it's not effective, you can prove it's a bad strategy for trans people.
Okay.
You can prove that state-based reform is good.
Okay. Wait, so state-based reform is offense?
You can prove it's good.
Okay. Does the AF reduce DCS or FMS from the United States?
Not in the traditional sense.
What does that mean?
So the people will typically view the USFG reducing, first off, they would typically view the actor as the USFG reducing these things. Obviously, the AF doesn't do that in traditional form. However, we think that gender hacking is a way to combat the weaponization of life against itself.
Does the AF result in a reduction in arm cells?
We'll say, like, again, not in the traditional sense.
Okay, that's fine. What does it mean to be trans?
What does it mean to be trans?
Yeah.
I think that's up to interpretation. I don't think there's any one static signifier.
But like, there's a whole part of the AF that's about like decoding what it means to be trans and sort of disinjecting trans.
I think it's decoding. I think it's creating infinite possibilities, infinite gendered possibilities into that which cannot be interpreted.
What is gender?
What is gender?
Yeah.
The way someone orients themselves.
Orients themselves towards what?
Sex, sexuality, gender norms, etc.
Okay. I guess, so does that include how they interact with others, or is it just about internalization?
I mean, like, gender is like a very, I guess, like individualized process, and we don't think that it's like up to us to decide what gender means to individual people, but we think that gender hacking is a good strategy for trans people.
That makes sense. So what does it mean for gender to be torn from society? That's just like a line I heard.
Gender to be torn from society?
Yeah.
I think the context that was probably in is about Preciado talking about moving the means of production of hormones and things like that, which they specifically cite to queer people and trans people who can actually utilize those in specific
queer
ways.
people have hormones, and that tears gender from society.
I don't know what.
No, it was just like was that.
Like I think that's about seizing the means of production of pharmacorn.
Okay, that's cool. How do we know that there's no one here to save us?
How do we know what?
That there's no one here to save us.
You're talking about like the extinction stuff?
Yeah.
Sure, so we're going to argue that like the way the pornographic capitalism has reproduced itself, it like sexualizes death to a point where we almost desire it. So like in the way that we're going now, like we're going to call this reproduction snuff politics. The way that snuff politics is going now, it means that like death is inevitable because like the dominant structures that like use know that it's means to control women.
So death is inevitable because
death is inevitable under formal pornographic capitalism.
Okay, that's fine. 750.
The order is 3 off next case.
Okay.
It should be sent, but let me know if I know there are potentially computer problems. Oh, like this slanted desk at all this is scary.
You can put 2 together. That's like the classic. Would that be helpful? Help.
Is everyone good?
Oh, wait 1 sec.
3 off.
Yep.
Oh, let me go to the doc.
No worries.
Okay, I'm good.
Alright, y'all good? Cool. Reducing DCS and our FMS requires governmental action. Sorensen 9. The FMS program involves government weapons and system sales. DCS are coordinated through the Office of Trade Controls, the State Department, the Bureau of Political and Military Affairs. FMS once the State Department has approved DCS allows for direct negotiations between the international customer and manufacturer. Unlike FMS, DCS is managed by the State Department. Direct commercial sales do not require the coordination of the Defense Department. Resolve means to enact a policy by law. Words and phrases 64. Resolve is by the legislature to establish by law. They don't meet the after-event dealing and colonial pedagogy. Not a reduction in DCS or FMS. That's constantly impacts its debatability. We have 2 internal links versus ground of predefined controversy who guarantees a substantial literature-based involvement of research classes on reasonable parameters and alternative frameworks and controversies with the ground allocated by the parameters of resolution, even if they wouldn't be could have read something relying on concession ground isn't a stable basis for a year of debate. Second is limits. A confined topic creates a predictable stasis point for debate that incentivizes in-depth topic research. Absent defined limits, the competitive nature of debate creates a race to the margins that shifts research away from core controversies. Debate is not about finding the perfect solution. It's about learning from the failures of our imperfect ones. The belief that any one debate can translate to material outcomes is naive at best and complicit in the systems they critique at worst. Topical advocacy encourages an ethos of humility and interconnectedness which can engender ontological shifts in society and confront the crisis of modernity, but that requires a willingness to be wrong. Andrew 18. If we are going to engage with the world and change making, it would be important to understand the contradictions and paradoxes without trying to project illusions on the world itself. When a system is in decline, people want to walk out. We can create a different system from the hot ashes. The system that hasn't yet cooled down, and the alternative people want results straight away. If an experiment you're designing something that you know is going to fail, learning from this, learning can take place through failure, become fertilizer for something that happens when these ashes cool. What is important is not to see failure as failure, but in order for it to be rewarding and funny, then it needs to be learning from failure. It needs to make mistakes. Debate is distinct from discussion due to its adversarial nature. We control uniqueness, and the internal link is linear. Multiple factors predisposes to avoiding clashes. seek to guarantee as much as possible the mere presence of limits or contention or ground lapse into confirmation bias at best and mutual ignorance at worst, centering debate on the instrumental consequences of the 1AC's proposal solves. Man in 17. Collective deliberation as an adversarial debate that puts emphasis on discussion opposites and points of view occupies the secondary place. Submitted an idea of criticism that constitutes the best means of testing its validity. The decisions most likely of a high quality if the proposals for action have been submitted to criticism permits effect. Criticism before does not guarantee that they will receive proper consideration to obtain favorable epistemic effect. Opposing opinions must be encouraged, not merely permitted to check confirmation bias. Expression is not sufficient to understand arguments and consider them objectively. We cannot expect gathering of diverse points of view will spontaneously produce clashes. In order to oppose an opinion contested, it is necessary that one take into consideration open and explicit clashes. Neither the natural state nor the sole possible condition. This task of mutual addressing is harder when the space of opinions is fragmented. People tend to source from in conflict with people who share their political opinions. Adversarial debates by nature reductive. We cannot discount the value of such cognitive simplicity. No matter how disagreeing will remain, people will have to live by under a decision they did not support. The probability of being confronted with opposing point of view matters. Make one thought careful, multidimensional, undermining the coherence of the arguments. A deliberative debate should focus on a specific theme. Next, Russian arms sales are low now, but only because of U.S. competition. Brzezinski 19. Global arms sales make on the increase. Russia's decline. Uptake in armed conflicts helps explain the increase in arms transfers. The U.S. plus 33% more than thanks to Trump liberation. Weapon export Middle Eastern countries have been important. 52% of U.S. weapon sales are in the Middle East. Russia has been losing key aircraft tenders in India. The U.S. The plan gives Russia market control. They won't sign such a 9. Supply of weapons is the consequence of the lack of international agreement. Tehran supplies of weapons because doing so serves policy objectives. Does anyone think governments will agree to ATT that requires them to stop? Nothing will provide a clear basis for determining specific arms transfers are a violation. Collapses U.S. influence. Bernard 18. Russia nor China is comfortable selling weapons to human rights violators. They are especially eager to peel off countries the U.S. has declined on the more country purchases from Russia. The less able it is to purchase from the U.S. countries will purchase advanced systems without U.S. maintenance. The key lever for U.S. influence. Global security partnerships will be steadily eroded by more assertive and less scrupulous rivals. Loss of influence causes great power wars. Kagan 07. American predominance prevents rivalries from intensifying where the U.S. diminishes influence through wars. Most possess nuclear weapons that make war more catastrophic. Europe's ability to depend on the U.S. in multiple world that would not be possible without world conflicts are more likely to erupt if the U.S. weakens. It could tempt Russia to forceful approach. Next. Transgender describes a class of people who experience structural transphobia. The 1AC's theorization of trans is doubly misguided. The question of oppression is not stasis of identity, it is capitalism. Likewise, the answer to this question cannot be a new theory that accommodates an endless number of identities, because every new way to become trans is just a new commodity to be recognized and consumed by the semiotic economy. Rather, the answer that they are looking for is communism. Escalante 314. The proliferation of identity designates a real trend in which there are a tendency or emphasis developing taxonomies to map out the difference in response to ideological issues counter ideology rather than shaping the material conditions for which the first ideology emerged. The question of who granted the subject status of most political concern politics cannot be reduced to this question. Career identity is focused with articulating an endless set of new identities. Redemption identity has developed in response to the real need for recognition, the demand for recognition, ability to naturalize the relationships of power and class, which creates identity in the first place. All we do when we expand our categories to create new, more nuanced channels through which power can operate. We ensnare ourselves in countless and even more nuanced and powerful norms. Each one new chain. My original article outlined self-evolution through embracing non-intelligibility and refusing to put forth the positive politics of identity. This was a naive understanding of what resistance on identity might look like, an embrace unintelligibility of rejection, of meaning and stability might have presented a useful method of resistance to gender operating merely at the levels of ideas and ideology. Gender represents a material reality which divides at the level of labor, economic, and life in the day-to-day material matter lives of individuals. The mark imposed on the bed, the oppressor did not predate oppression. Women are a class, masculine, feminine are the categories which serve to conceal the social difference will always belong to economic order. It's the oppression that creates economics. Contrary to the process of categorization, our material grounded in class struggle and wish to serve the material interests of men as a class. The valorization of differences founded in one subjectivity can operate as ideological justification for material exploitation. We are left with only skeleton of a strategy. Idealist ground precludes the possibility for strategy at all. Communist opposition provides a crucial path forward. This will be moved towards communism. Offerings in private households replaced by communal labor undoing the many generations of degradation and coercive differentiation. The struggle for the abolition of gender cannot be separate from the struggle for communism. Gender is material relations that can be combated. Material, only real, concrete, and organized struggle can move us forward. More mitigation or embrace of unintelligibility cannot be enough. What comes after must be a material struggle against patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism, which refuses to reduce any one of them to any other. This requires cut the credit requires. The affirmative falsely ontologizes the ritualistic. We agree that the choices we make are not neutral, but the only standpoint that can analyze the politics of everyday choices is one that starts from the universal choices have not been forced to prohibit in reality. Capitalism has brought every choice in the new bloated public such a collapse privacy. The only question of whether we exploit this hyper-publicity. Hazard 17. A growing emphasis on fragmentation, single-issue politics, and avoiding totalizing the jettison structural analysis of capitalism. The differences go between that which is being opposed and strategy being used to oppose this generative disempowerment. Capitalism powers therefore identified as totality. On the other hand, these theorists celebrate local fragmented or partial forms of knowledge as the only form available and criticize big picture thinking of it is potentially oppressive applications. They cannot serve as suitable basis for any politics seeking because the expansive hegemonic project of neoliberal capitalism cut the credit capitalism. Environment, financialization, failure of political systems, lobbying, capitalism will collapse, resulting in the rise of fascism and extinction. Robin is supporting the causal origins of global crises that are to be found in overaccumulation. The international context of the capitalist system crisis in any place tends to crisis for the whole global crisis, broader economic, social, political, cultural, ideological, and ecological, existential risks of our consciousness, values, and very being. The system cannot assure the survival of majority of humanity. Crisis is sustainable, rooted in ecological holocaust that has already begun expressing climate change, the impending culture collapse of centralized agricultural systems, climate change, the nitrogen cycle, biodiversity loss are tipping points. The magnitude means violence and social controls on prices and warfare has become normalized. Capitalism is reaching limits to expansion. There are no longer territories, both right and left-wing forces are assigned. The alt-right is an interchangeable force in many countries. The project seeks to use reaction to political power, transactional capital, and organized mass being among historically privileged sectors of the global working class, such as white workers in the north and middle layers, and south, involves militarism, extreme masculinity, and homophobia, racism, racist mobilizations, including the search for scapegoats as immigrant workers, and Muslims often embraced as an idealized and mythical past. The alternative is to affirm the model of the Communist Party. Only the party can provide effective accountability mechanisms to correct the problems of the one. Educate and mobilize marginalized communities and conduct local struggles to move for international liberation. Escalante 18. In the current state of the left revolution, it's not possible to build emphasis on dual power response to this by building the institutions which can meet people's needs who are able to concretely demonstrate that communists can offer the upwards relief from the horrific conditions of capitalism in order to mobilize the base. We need to have already done the work of building Communist Party. A strategy is revolutionary and organized strategy which adopts the party model. The party creates internal methods for holding party members accountable, unifying action around democratically determined goals.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
How does voting neg create the party?
It's an endorsement of a political strategy.
It's an endorsement of the strategy. Okay, so let's say that strategy should be endorsed. What does it look like to form that party?
Simon, what does it look like to form the party?
Yeah, so it's a process of organizing, vertical organizing. The Escalante card specifies sort of dual power responsibility, building institutions that meet people's needs, an organization of the proletariat against capital.
Is the proletariat an identity?
No, it's a class.
What's the difference?
Because capital creates class distinctions.
Well, what's the difference between identity and class? Why is class not a part of identity?
Because I think that sort of like individuals have autonomy over their identity and get to determine.
Wait, so being trans or queer is a choice?
I don't think it's a choice.
You said they have autonomy over their identity.
No, that's not the point. Like it's sort of like there's a more socialized component of it than class. Like
so class isn't social?
No, class is definitely social. Okay, like so maybe class is an identity. Sure. Class is an identity.
Sweet. Okay. How does the affirmative ontologize anything? When did we make an ontology claim?
What do you mean answer that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the argument is about just like sort of the ritualistic sort of injection or like the ritualistic position of gender and sexuality as like what's the word I'm looking for?
Okay, anyway.
Who controls DCS and FMS?
Who controls DCS?
Yeah.
Our evidence says that the government.
The United States. Okay.
Okay. What's the time frame for extinction on cap? When's it happen?
I think the bit specifies it. Right, I know that there's a lot of years floating around. I don't know which one the card says, but basically, like, it says that we're at a tipping point for climate change and biodiversity loss.
Okay.
So, like,
why is U.S. influence good?
Do we defend that? Oh.
Yeah. Why is U.S. influence?
Because it prevents a great power war.
Why is that bad?
Because it kills everyone.
Okay. Who decides what's fair?
We debate about it.
What?
I just said we debate about it. I don't think there's
Yeah,
a
I was going to
universal-
say, like, probably the judge at the end of the round based on who said it better.
Why is the ground you want good?
Because it's a fair division based on a predefined controversy with a substantial literature base.
Okay, why does it? Why doesn't the K have? Why doesn't the app have a substantial literature base?
The F might have a substantial literature base, but it probably doesn't. Your model of debate doesn't allow it. Equal division.
Start prep.
What?
Starting now.
Yeah.
We you notice that I'm missing something in the
And the
you just shut up.
framework comes as a problem. That's fine.
Yeah.
They're also wrong. That's fine. No, I mean, it's like, if we had, they were. It's fine.
I'm sending out, I'm trying to compile the doc, cross the doc. Okay, and prep. Yeah.
6:45.
Right. It's gonna be case, framework, the dishad, and then okay.
Can you say it one more time?
Case, framework, the dishad, and the cat.
Yeah.
Did you just send your? You sent a bunch of.
Oh, I sent a bunch of
You
case
sent
stuff.
all the case studies.
Ignore that.
That's the best spelling of Minneapolis I've ever seen. I'm gonna start using that.
I can't spell, man, okay?
No, I'm saying it's, I like it.
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
Aesthetically pleasing.
You just sent your app file?
No, just the case.
Just the
stuff.
case answers, because I put them into the doc on accident.
Wait, let me see
Oh,
this
and your
shit.
framework
Let me see
answers.
this shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. I didn't have time to put the cards into a separate doc. You know, I decided.
No, hell yeah, I
Yeah.
love sending blogs.
You know, I
That
decided
makes me
this
feel
year
good.
we're going to be very transparent
Hell yeah.
about our
Thank you.
about our blocks.
It's kind of a bra moment.
No, I always send all my blogs.
Make us a pro moment.
Okay. Right. Everyone good?
Wait, so is it the 2AC that you send or did you?
It's the two AC I sent.
Okay, cool.
I'll just
I'll
have
like
the
I'll like
blogs in it.
signpost and stuff.
Okay. Because you know when you're reading a card, that's important.
All right. We are in a new era of capitalist production, a world in which sex, gender, and sexuality have transformed into objects of political management. In the post-Cold War era's invention of contraceptive technologies, mass production of hormones, and government regulation of pornography, capitalism's mode of control has shifted to a regulation of the codes of life itself. It has gained control over what we call the orgasmic force, a carnal and digital workforce made to transform the world in pleasure. The pharmapornographic industry's control of orgasmic force creates binary distinctions between genders and sexualities, along with creating space for marginalized bodies to become biopolitically controlled by oppressive structures. The APS method of gender hacking aims to reclaim the orgasmic force from pharmapornographic industries. One method by which the industry controls the orgasmic force is through the regulation of gendered signifiers like hormones. Our project in gender hacking refuses to leave the control of these signifiers in the hands of the state. We use them without the constraints of the government and pharmaceutical regulations. In doing this, we reclaim control over biopolitical reality. As in the entirety of the case debate, when conceded coming out of the one AC, which means that you have to give it, which means that you have to give it full weight on solvency. Let's go to framework. First is the silencing dishad. Except 187, that's the Spade 10 evidence. Our interpretation of framing is a form of silencing that Spade says is a form of policing within academia of trans bodies, telling us what we can talk about, how we're supposed to talk about it, has the same attitudes as cis academics and advisors telling trans people to stop being so explicit and stop making people uncomfortable. Framework prioritizes cis comfortability over trans liberatory politics, which leads to a silencing of trans scholarship. And our counter-interpretation action disidentify with the resolution. Disidentification refuses to refuse traps of both dominant ideology and engagement and outright rejection, and works on and against
against dominant ideologies to create spaces of change within cultural logics. Munoz 99. Dissent advocates the third mode of dealing with dominant ideology, while then neither also assimilate within such structured directly opposes dissent education works on and against dominant ideology, decided to actually transform cultural logic within always labor to enact a permanent structural change while at the same time valuing the importance of local or every struggles of resisting deformation of civil identifications of failure, the point of departure from a democratizing affirmation of intent or difference, they pave the way for an understanding of disidentificatory subject who tactically and simultaneously works on and against a cultural form of dissent and finds real themselves in one's life as a narrative and the moment object of subject as not culture encoded to connect the sedimenting substance reworking of those energies that do not delight in the harmful contradictory components of any identity. And this solves our offense. And dissent identification is not an outright rejection, but a reorientation towards how we answer the resolutional question. This means that there's still a stable stasis point for them to engage with the resolution under different lenses. There are a couple of net benefits. First is embodiment politics. Dissent identification allows us to engage in a form of politics directly tied to our bodies. This is key to preserve scholarship in the face of potential violence and create new forms of existence that move beyond the realms of cultural intelligibility. Directly experimenting on our bodies creates room for material existence, gives us space to disidentify from the fabric of normativity. That's the one you see pressing out of evidence. And second is transpedagogy. Centering the trans body as a site of potential knowledge production and subject formation creates opportunities for transfer to critically understand their place in the world and how to maneuver their institutions that bind them. This is key to create new forms of collective resistance and combat the effects of pornographic sponsored apathy. Go large 14. Learning about trans phenomena takes place across the spectrum of social practice, transpedagogy offers students who need to participate in structures that shape the boundaries of gender positive learning and become a political mechanism through which identity is shaped and desires mobilize pedagogy supplies space for affective engagement, risk formation, and rejection of values that are the threats. As a set of knowledge is crucial. This type of radical critiques and potentially transform the heart of effective transpedagogy pedagogy, so during practice to create new forms of resistance. On their standards, first on education, one, double bind. There's no terminal impact to policy education loss with the policy education takes too long to spill. Debaters don't join Congress overnight. And two, fiat kills education. Fiat mutates and obscures real government action, which means that the policy education debate is not useful for actual engagement. And the third is a form of Picard that the education they produce is inextricably tied to process a form of pornographic capitalism. They refund the state as an inherently good and individual aspect as reality, and in reality it's used to police their transits and gender. Their education uses sexual technologies to forcibly inscribe gender significations on a queer body. This removes the potential for escape of binaries or gender relations and proves that their education reproduces the technologies that one AC critiques. And second, and fourth is a representational politics. It's that the education we got from debate teaches us to rely on the government and government officials for change rather than linking to ourselves to reliance on this possibility for radical individual individual practice on ground. The one, you have ground. You can read things like call cap, anti-blackness, or any other counter that contests us on the methodological level. You can also read policy arguments like see the political debris with 2020 and KVK debates are uniquely good for education. Their model limits them out. They're key to determining the best strategy to resist structures of power and oppression without buying into the logics that for them. On limits, our counter-interpretation to what solves this. We've offered a stasis point by which two teams can engage each other to taking out their offense. And our model doesn't stop. The policy still pushes limits while the works for immigration app on the education topic. And the limits is set up for us for closer opportunity to discuss ways of engagement that don't involve the state as well as the possibilities of method comparison and will preempt the TVA cross-apply our education office here. The TVA will perpetuate forms of pornographic capitalism lead to the impacts of the entire 1AC is impact turn, and the affirmation of the 1AC as a counter-resolutional method is important for producing new forms of scholarship within debate. I think that work on the counter-interpretation. The TVA removes that form that we presented, removes the form that we presented, which sanitizes the ass politics. And plan focus states that if we have read the TVA, would it just read 7 off with the counterplan and not engage with the act itself? The model limits out the possibility for actual engagement and understanding. All of Russia does that. Russia arms sales high and continuing now. Defense procurement, full spectrum, Syrian, US abandonment, Connolly, PhD, and MA 17. Russia continues to occupy political positions, strengthening the industry and the net strategic importance to the global arms trade, exporting wide range of sophisticated weapons to a growing number of countries around the world. Russia, the dominant supplier of weapons, is at least one country, one region, examines the position during its political, economic, and military influence. This country, Russia, is also seeking to strengthen its position in new markets, also select for orders such as continue to occupy the global import position in the years to come. Russia continues to go into defense procurement since 2011. Mark the card in 2011. And Trump marks the end of the hegemonic cycle. The app's call for hegemony reassures the violent transition wars and failure of global cooperation. March 2017. Presidency will be characterized by retrenchment. The hegemon will be declining due to cost of management, which are a balance of benefits and security costs due to military operation. Overall, that became too heavy for citizens' withdrawal from free trade agreements because of NATO, cancellation of environmental kind of disengagement. The UN system burned with NATO, WTO have been strongly promoted by the USA globalization. China's rising nationality, the US leadership of the economic, political, and military would be a multipolar system. And on the K, capitalism now operates through sexual management using flows of desire and resistance that are created by substances. We are no longer in the time of Marx where new material goods must be produced to extract value from, but rather sex is able to reproduce ideas and symbols through chemical reactions. The goal of the system is to sell you a transformed subjectivity as proven by unprecedented amounts of money spent on research about sex during the Cold War. And you fundamentally believe hormones commercialize ourselves in the pill that separates orgasm from reproduction. There are two implications to this. First, it's political control. These led the creation of Viagra, discovery of latex, and new sexual surgeries, which prove that capitalism no longer wants to repress us but tactically trigger erections as a form of viable political control, which means that the alt is in you, or which is just an orgasm under you guys, and the alpha is a prerequisite. Any revolutionary politics must start by hacking the body in unforeseeable ways rather than attempting to find one cause and one motive for resistance, because the power of the form of pornographic capitalism is the diffusion of power within all parts of life. And don't give them their identity politics, like they admit any cross-sex that classes and identity, and perm both the money sees reproach the creation of biopolitical apparatuses that create substitutes and neoliberals and relies upon in order to turbine their profit, which is a prerequisite to both material resistance. And the revolution becomes absorbed by the system, and the next hot fetish by on nature and stable acknowledgement of orgasmic force amounts to signify capitalism to result in change. Barstow 13. The artisan portfolio made it clear the production is no longer situating companies, but a society as a whole, and analysis and description of forms of production self-violently at the bell, but it desire sexuality and religion multitude were a value out of the contemporary economy, political cooperation, master report, mentoring, not a brain porn is economy, amateur portals are constituted truly emerging market of internet porn, and user internet can read the porn site, having access to cyber market of sex consumers, autonomous strategies, cyber visitors, market credit cyber visitors, open cross-sex. Sorry, which card did you? The last Preciado card. Oh, I got you on the first. That's true. I guess we can just start at the top. Did you? Sorry, this doc is confusing. No, you're fine. You need clarification. What? You need clarification. We can just like. No, I'm just. Yeah, you're fine. Okay. It's so thick. You got like answers to drugs ban. Please don't read that on case in the two. Oh my god, did we say that? Please. I don't think we said that. So I'm just trying to figure out the parts that are relevant. But that's okay. That's chill. You know what? We can go to the K. That's the part I can understand. Can you explain the section A, the political control? Sure. So we're gonna argue that the way that capitalism now controls us is through like controlling our orgasmic force and like orientations towards like the erotic. Right, so capitalism creates things like Viagra, latex condoms, sexual surgeries, and like Playboy and pornography to control people and make sure that like they remain submissive under like the world of capitalism. Right, so yeah, so we're just offering like a. So yeah, this entire like section on top is offering a counter thesis to like your traditional like, Marxist understanding of capitalism. I guess I'm confused about one thing. See, so capitalism made condoms to keep us submissive. Sure, like capitalism creates sexual technologies which like are used again to so like. We not wait. The big focus that Preciado talks about is the porn industry and how pornography is used to control people's sexual desires, which keep them like submissive and like I guess compliant under like late stage capitalism. And then your only response to the links was that class is an identity. Yeah, like your identity politics as well. Okay, that's true. I can do that. Okay, the Preciado card just says revolutions will be like co-opted. How? Yeah. So I guess how does gender hacking not get co-opted? So gender hacking, I can take prep to answer this if you want. Sure. Sure. Okay. How much prep did y'all have? 8 minutes.
758.
Okay.
Just like, how does gender hacking not become a hot?
Yeah, sure. So Preciado characterizes gender hacking as a form of like invisibility politics that like aren't recognized by dominant structural forms. However, like your I guess communist revolution, like that is a very open and I guess like is a very open like, thing that yeah.
What was the timer at? Sorry. What's the timer at?
7:38.
Okay, thank you.
7:30.
What's that?
Frozen. Framework and case. The card deck is just the one in cards.
Are you reading cards on framework?
We good?
1 minute. As the case stuff is what?
Just the stuff in the one in C doc.
1 second, let me just write some down real quick.
good? We're good?
The interpretations that topical aspects reduce DCS or FMS, which requires governmental action, that's source, and they don't meet the active defensive process of gender hacking, which doesn't reduce DCS or FMS from the US. That's cross-sex. Debate is a game, no matter what the round correlates to a winner or loss or topicality is only a question of if there is a predictable role for competition. They've already adhered to the format by speaking first and being on time and not clubbing, which means debatability is a prior question to evaluating their advocacy. We're not saying that debate is the end of activism. However, the competitive nature of debate over determines our research practices and advocates what's best for going around rather than real world solution. Debate is one of bad arguments all the time. So and the app loses the topic generics between the ballot and a referendum on political strategies. Rather, who did the better bit debating? This turns debating for our education, our content, which is the basis for all of their offensive frame. All of their offense with the scope of solve is the app shouldn't be able to win by saying the resolution is bad. The topic doesn't have to be good to be debatable or prove useful stasis for a year of debate. The first argument is a silencing this. There's absolutely no link to it. You can talk whatever you want about when you're negative, but when you're after, you have to be topical. You can tie that to your identity. I'll get to that on the TVA debate, but the debate is unique because the debate is unique because of the competitive incentive. It's not a lecture. If you wanted to exclusively talk about your identity, there's places and there's spaces outside of the competitive nature of the debate to do that, like lectures, discussion sections, classes, etc. All of those are independent spaces. They have to prove why their advocacy needs to be situated within debate to solve any of their offense. The TVA text, the United States federal government should end all direct commercial sales and foreign military sales to Mexico as a clear interjection in the foundation of security. The economy is any reason why the TVA doesn't solve its net ground and frame the TVA laws of sufficiency. It doesn't have to be perfect to resolve most of their offense. It just has to be the debatable concept that it's have to resolve the app's harms. Just because it could be bad doesn't mean it shouldn't be debated. And any reason why it's bad is called negative ground. And also, it prefers debate. It creates better debates because part of their lit probably advocates for government action, while the other part critiques it. It doesn't mean your identity doesn't matter. It just means that some of that can be incorporated in a speech, and some of that can be incorporated, and some of that can be important. It doesn't all have to be incorporated in a speech. And one time it can be incorporated in different sort of spaces at different times, because debate is an activity where you have to be on both sides, and debate is a game. Tons of places to talk about it. I did that all above, and switch sides solves their advocacy better. There's no reason why all their scholarship we have has to be read in this one. I see incorporating it in topical labs along with reading of the negative laws for more of the literature based to be accessed, because they don't have to worry about beating framework, and around that means that there will be more in-depth debates grounded in the resolution of controversy, because their specific criticisms of the topic are more strategic than than politics. It sets and crosses counterplans, and the offense, the counter interpretation links to all of it. This identification explodes the scope of the resolution to every single dominant ideology that's critical of the state. Afro-futurism, Afro-pessimism, queer-kinship, literally any anti-state theorist is Afro-crime, which is thousands and thousands of academics, which absolutely explodes research burdens, especially true because so much of that shit is behind paywalls that it's impossible for schools for people who don't have the money to access all the literature to get access to that. And tying our bodies to our politics is bad. It causes battle fatigue. Exclusively tying our politics to the body is bad because it causes battle fatigue and forced outing, because people can choose to engage with them affirmatism on the negative, which solves their offense, prevents it from being the only model of debate. And trans people are sick, but that collective resistance isn't unique to debate. The adversary nature sort of overdetermines the way in which we have these conversations in the first place, which is probably a reason that there's trans spaces outside of debate that should be celebrated. You can read debate arguments about celebrating those spaces, but under a topical plan text, just because we could have read some of the ground defense, just because we could have read some arguments does not mean it's predictable or good. It still links to all of our limits offense, because it fragments the division of ground and string steel and shallow debates about competing and also framework is about topicality is about competing interpretations. If we prove that ours is a better model for debate, then you can vote negative. The counter interpretation explodes limits or sacrifices in-depth of argumentation and predictable status point for prep. Even after their model might be good ideas, we could cut its case sense that expose negative prep, which cuts out of in-depth nuance and argumentation only predictable status point. Like the resolution provides a clear division of ground to base our resolution often sustain here debate, and that's key to debatability, which is the only impact intrinsic to debate. Competitive incentives like the ballot and speaker points prove that there's inherent value to competition. The app changes the structure of the game, and therefore massively increasing the scope of potential apps, which while still benefiting from perms, which leaves the negative with only concessionary ground and limits are key to clash. The process of debate is beneficial to us rather than it's only a question of how to maximize this potential clash. Turns their education arguments, because without mutual engagement, the round turns into a lecture which they need to prove an opportunity cost to you. Should prioritize a culture of rigorous justification that promotes ethical decision making by facilitating reflexive internal deliberation to reveal the complexities of each issue, and ground outweighs their activating on controversial topic fosters critical thinking through preparation and strategizing over opponents' arguments. That means we learn about multiple positions from multiple perspectives and ensure we learn how to make our arguments stronger by refining our strategies, and that's key to debatability. Stable controversy with predictable ground can foster nuanced debates on both sides of an issue. The counter-interpretation destroys net ground and forces teams to go for unpermeable advocacies at the edge of the Olympics, which leads to dogmatism and stale debates, and that turns the competitive nature of debate means teams that will take the counter-interpretation of the margins and read advocacies that don't take a stance on anything, which doesn't access any of their sort of revolutionary potential because of the competitive nature. Teams will just make arguments and not say anything. Oh yeah, though wouldn't engage with the app argument is completely not true. They have to prove that traditional policy debate doesn't engage with apps, but the counter-interpretation makes that so much worse because teams have to rely on with so many more generics because the topic is so huge that they never be able to cut a specific case neck for every single critical theory that's critical of the state. Cool. Oh yeah, and just because there's lots of apps now doesn't mean that there wouldn't be under their interpretation, and lots of apps now is like the 6 apps that people read on this topic, not the thousands that exist in their case. The app is a double term. Ricardo's theories embedded within misogyny only offers a facade of transgression while reinforcing dominant gender norms. Hasn't 16. There's a moment when BP's even quit and take only when they're realizing that gender all girls, the most beautiful, most heterosexual ones waiting for Prince Charming of the natural testosterone are actually destined without knowing to become bitches that may dildo penetrated from counter-dominant trends. That's a quote from her. The least amount of casual misogyny testo junkie reveals the breaking down the distinction between personal and philosophical made wonder why BP's casual misogyny extends to the analysis of pharma and the legacy of testo junkies is called for versus non-auto theory also comes from part of limited danger to the strategy shocks, and excess can also be parts of the memory mechanism that seeks to reset my field transgressions, but as you but also an academic space with the rebellious, hardly unto the ironic of not of sexuality, disciplinary power, the concept of power and important power, dangerous and I'm gonna skip that card. Ricardo speaks from a privileged position, does not take into account those with lower circumstances or who view environment in a different relationship. Also, self-experimentation is crucial to Ricardo's work as 13. Ricardo is the principle and she writes that I am my own guinea for experimentation. Experimentation is the process of crucial for the project of Ricardo's focuses the experimentation rather than identity decision, which they're made of neutral without potential negative consequences for people who do not live in their reasonably independent circumstances who relationship with the pharmaceutical industry critiques are different, compelling, and I'm going to skip those arguments. Learning about the government is necessary to understand the intricacies of arms inform clash and policy debates and key to effective advocacies in tangible and tangible shapes. Holden 16. We're being a network that makes the defense industry got to conform to accountable and the first step is to debate about the arms industry and models and practices and certification demand, transparency to combat this tendency demand, how your government corporate engage in arms sales demand, accountability following local evidence and solidarity can access evidence-driven transparent discussion of our by doing so makes the world safer and scenario analysis is pedagogically valuable. Barstow 16. Scenario analysis serving the purpose of planning under policy tools not inherently limited to the art of juxtaposition trends of unexpected combinations to articulate possible future scenarios are not hypothetical based on predictions nor should they be equal to simulation. There are depictions of possible future state that are features to make scenario analysis possible for policy making that imagines let alone perfect its continuity is contained by existing models of math is by proof and confirmation bias. The possibility of lies to help individuals break down conventional modes of thinking scenarios offer scholars may encounter features so they can begin thinking about them now. Participants learn the strategies to avoid creativity or overturning assumptions that prevent scholars from understanding. Cool.
What's the terminal impact of the game being unfair?
Well, like that. We think that's the only impact.
That's the only impact.
Yeah.
Okay, so
like, if debate is a game,
yeah.
The only question of the game is if it's debatable.
If it okay, sure. So what happens if debate's unfair?
It's not about fairness. It's about the game existing. It's about the game's ability to function. So the impact to that is the destruction of debate and
the impact is the destruction of debate.
Well, just that.
What's the impact?
Debate.
What's the impact of the destruction of debate?
Because I don't know. We're just making it's a procedural argument.
What's
right?
the impact of the destruction of debate?
It's a procedural argument about the way that debate should function, right? It's
okay.
The impact is that the game's unplayable, which is a bad model.
Sure. What off would you have read if we read the TBA?
What?
What off-case arguments would you have read if we read the TBA?
I don't know. We have a really good. I mean, we would probably read Dark to Lose sometimes. So we'd probably read Dark to Lose.
Why can't you read that against us now?
Yeah.
What?
Well,
I really don't want to get into a Dark to Lose versus.
Why not?
Because that's just like so messy. I don't know. Like,
I mean, that's engaging with the app, right? Proves you had ground.
no, I don't think so. Like Dark to Lose is like sus
Okay.
against KFs. Like
What
really
does
sus.
how does the affirmative like engage in forced outing? Like our counter interpretation doesn't say that you only have to read embodiment focused apps. We're saying that it provides the opportunity for people to read those.
Disidentify with their So you were just like you made a whole bunch of arguments about how I don't know, like I guess,
we're saying that the counter interpretation like allows for the potential for embodiment type apps to like exist within the debate space. Like how like we're not saying that you have to engage in those kinds of apps. Like how is that forced outing?
Yeah, okay, so I guess if the counter interpretation doesn't mandate that, then that's not offense, but we think that our interpretation still allows for this kind of debates to exist.
Why is self-experimentation bad?
Self-experimentation? What's
Yeah.
that? Like, sorry, what's self-experimentation?
Self-experimentation, like the geek guinea pig principle, which Preciado talks about, gender hacking, like based on like the body itself.
Oh, are you asking about the first card that I read in case?
Yeah. Well, the second card, I think.
I didn't read the second card.
Oh, the third card.
I didn't read the third card either.
I mean, okay. What does debate teach us about the
Oh
government?
yeah, sorry, I did read the third card. I didn't read the second card. Yeah, so that just writes that like sort of that card is just sort of about the focus on experiment rather than identity is it has
politically what does debate teach us about the government? What does debate teach us about the government? Because like through fiat, we basically get through all of the bureaucratic structures that like prevent marginalized groups from like usually passing the policies that they want. So how does debate like teach us how to?
We didn't make an education argument. Like that wasn't a standard. We think that.
No, but that was a Cardinal case.
Oh, the Barna evidence.
Yeah.
That's just like scenario planning. Like it's not about teaching. It's about planning.
Are we at 6:43? Right.
There's the one on.
No, you can take credit. I think you should. Well, Gmail thinks that I'm giving you a virus. So I guess I accept that at your own discretion.
We had a team send a virus to one of our teams once.
Yeah. Wait, when?
KCC Octa's Olate that East sent a virus to Miles and Jacqueline.
That team?
Honestly, power me to this. Maybe I did send you a virus. Do I win if I send you a virus?
I mean, our computer stopped working.
Off.
Oh no. Is everything good?
I just gonna open the dock.
Alright. Mr. Proust. Hey, I follow the paradigm.
That makes me feel weird, so I'm gonna delete that right now.
It should.
It's mainly for like.
For like middle schoolers.
I've never heard someone call a judge Mr.
It's like I'm 18. Like what the?
Okay, Mr. Proust. Whenever you're ready.
Wait. I need to do this right now.
Justice for Mr. Proust.
No. That's not allowed. It's illegal.
Still deleted?
I don't know. Don't put in your paradigm if you can't defend it.
I thought I could, but I can only defend it when it's like middle schoolers.
Do middle schoolers use tab room?
No.
I don't know.
I guarantee you they do not.
Okay,
Is everybody ready?
I'm good now.
Okay. Capitalism is destroying the climate for profit, which leads to extinction. We are at a tipping point of climate change and biodiversity loss, which will lead to endless wars until we all die. That's Robinson. There's no room for expansion. It means capital will collapse, and with it there will be a massive increase in incarceration and detention by fascists who attempt to preserve their position and investment in vertical party building is the only way to avoid fascist takeover, which turns the F, that's Escalante, the alt is the only way to ensure accountability, means it's try or die to avoid fascist takeover and extinction. The cycle of resilient living sustains a neoliberal communicative economy and perpetuates multiracial white supremacist patriarchy, which makes the anti-blackness coloniality, heteronormativity, and gender discrimination, ableism, naturalism, communal politics, turns case James 15. I don't know how to say that. MRWASP uses resilience to cut the color line, the gender binary, homonormative, and queer, and to differentiate mainstreamable and non-mainstreamable people with disabilities. Resilience treats racialization, gendering, sexualization like a deregulated marketplace, displaces social identities with market incentives and disincentives, and then your social political status in Mr. Wasp is not immutable given the effect of an ongoing process of being formed according to market logic. Mr. Wasp is a process that's flexible and tweakable. Racialization, gendering are lines like coupling processes of distribute resilience, competence, past successes, failures, bourgeois, cisgendered, able-bodied, POC are generally the most resilient because Mr. Wasp has to make fewer material and ideological compromises as a strategy for producing blackness and multi-intensifying feedback loops of precarious bouncing back from adversary. They don't get to reinvent the surplus value they generate back into their own human capital, climate, blackness, queerness, disability that have always been technologies for extracting that piece of values to the very house where commodified labor just updates them to work in neoliberalism deregulation. On the links, they mishandled the Escalante link. It's not just about identity politics. The app is the wrong approach and will always result in exploitation and consumption of trans people as commodities. They search for new ways to become trans as a means of escaping that, but it only creates new channels through which power can operate. Conceptions of gender are always belonging to an economic order, and the only way to truly abolish that is materialist struggle against capitalism. And that's the same author as our alt, which we'll go to now. The alt is to refuse the one who sees fragmentation of resistance and insist on universality. This is a precondition to ethics as Escalante. Only class struggle clears the space for authentic politics. Capitalism must be the starting point for all other political considerations. Class struggle is the universal antagonism that creates space for particular struggles like the one you see. A political strategy that does not address capital will ensure that larger structures of oppression remain intact. Escalante says this leads to more subversive critical pedagogy than the app. It's a political strategy that builds a praise, not an engagement book, works together to create people when the system collapses. People will support who has food and healthcare. The alternative is the only method for effective mobilization of identity categories. This doesn't erase difference, it just situates it within a broader historical analysis of capitalism, which is the only way to create lasting material change. McLaren, Denial 4. To reanimate those categories by interrogating how they are reflected through material relations of power and privilege linked to relations of production. Unlike narratives which focus on one form of oppression, power, historical materialism results in an ability to reveal how forms of oppression based on difference do not possess autonomy from class relations, but constitute the ways in which oppression is lived within a class system, and how forms of social oppression function within an overarching capitalist system framework that connects particular experience by exploring how they constitute in broader historical and social circumstances. The alt is reflective and adaptive to social prejudice, solves the F, Chinar, and Process 14. Struggle can play a crucial role in making reaction ideas and transforming society. Class struggle testing clarify it is not possible to understand how prejudice against black people in Britain was pushed back without looking at struggles in the workplaces that came before. These encouraged black and white workers to act together. Marxists see struggle as terrain in which backwards ideas are up for challenge. Opponents claim that the theory reduces everything to class. Marxists always throw themselves in battles from the movements of working class women in East London to the role played by communists in the fight against segregation in the South to the movement against Thatcher's anti-gay. Marx shows they both view prejudice as a cancer of class movement. Class is crucial in understanding the roots of oppression. Class is vital because they're locating the problem within the system rather than individuals. It holds every possibility and fundamentally change. People who face oppression can raise and business workers as allies for a reason. The prospect of a united struggle. Sorry, 1 second. And their Preciado co-option fetishization card makes no sense when gender-queer people are so incredibly fetishized, and like dude bros literally hit my friend's DMs like, oh, it's so cool how you like don't do gender, and porn corporations make a ton of money stealing from trans workers and reposting with super transphobic titles. Means if you buy this art, there's no way the app doesn't get co-opted too. Means you can just vote neg on presumption because nothing is safe from like being fetishized and co-opted. No perm, breaking down capitalism is the best starting point for fighting against all forms of oppression. Exploitation should be understood and fought through class-based struggles. Second, the nature of all our links are offense to the permutations form of engagement. A, subdivision, the purpose of fragmentation of identity, perpetually delaying real class struggle. The politics of the app forces us to put off class struggle until we navigate and account for included particular identities. The purpose of motion that solves the universal struggle. B, depoliticization. Capitalism must be treated as categorically different from other oppressions, otherwise it's removed from the realm of questioning which prevents universal resistance. The term is a revolution without a revolution. Third, crossing the link debate. All of our links are reasons why their advocacy is capitalistic and a bad starting point to orientate our politics towards. Your ballot should endorse the team that creates the best political strategy.
How much time do we have? 6:45.
Yeah. I'm going to give you do you have the extension for the worship on the capital?
Yeah.
Do you
It's not bad. I really wanted to
will be like if you win, if they win, they're if they win, they're like if they win, they're like I guess model debate, then sure, and extension is the most important behind it. Okay, we have 4:10.
Case.
I have to say trans people are sick and
I thought you were saying like trans people are like actually like physically ill. I'm like, I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what?
Bro, I mean, I did have
so.
How about iron deficiency?
Yeah. I'm anemic, so.
Yeah.
No,
Case. Framework. Cap.
no, you want the timer?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Wait, where did you get that timer? I like that timer.
Amazon.com. Oh, I have that one.
Cap. Is that.
So case T K disad. Any cards? Okay.
Political capitalism transform gender and sexuality into commodities we manage through contraceptives, hormones, and pornography. These create an orgasm for that turns all into mind-numbing pleasure at the cost of binary distinctions that leave marginalized bodies in all places. Creators only gender hacking can reclaim autonomy over our biopolitical realities through embodied practices that use hormones in ways that state can't even fathom. Their top card A, this card misgenders Paul Prescott, he changed his name. That naming is a violent practice that reminds trans people of who they're supposed to be but never could be. B, codes queer sexuality as masculine. This is some turf stuff. The second card, A, card says nothing, just says Prescott self-experimentation. Cool. The hold in arms card, it assumes that focusing on this state-based reform is a good idea. However, it obfuscates from the more violent sorts of things that go on with these justified bites, such as Abu Ghraib. The Barma card app is a form of scenario planning, just not state-based framework. The question of this debate isn't if a topical app would be bad in real life, but if reading a T app in the debate space is a bad idea. The silencing this extends Spain. Framework is a form of policing trans bodies based on the idea that trans experience is a rarity, meaning they're supposed to assimilate and be accommodated to the system rather than recreating new ideas of it based on the way things are already gendered. Framework as an attempt to manage trans embodiment under gender neutrality. We're told don't be explicit, don't make people uncomfortable. The rules old as absent of trans people in academia were being told to meet certain standards that can only hurt us, which is perplexing due to daily violence faced. Why follow rules when they're inherently geared against you? It's not a question of content, it's a question of form. The way TVA and Switch Side Act is a way to preserve the status quo through creating diversity rhetoric, including trans people as a smokescreen of equality that affirms the system without actually changing, results in tokenization. The counter to actually disidentify with the resolution 70 no's 99. Disidentification is affirmation rejection, but rather a process that works against it with dominant ideology, which attacks the dominant notion of debate that forces us in binary positions. This solves our office because our model centers resolution or question through a different lens, which provides a functional limit because lit checks the types of lenses people can actually use. There are two net benefits. First is embodiment. Our model allows for debates to be tied to the body, experimenting with what we can do in preserving personal experience in the face of normativity. The counter term doesn't require embodiment, but creates a space to foster it. That means their outing offense doesn't apply. Second is trans pedagogy. That's the loyalty, separating the experience of trans students less for examination of the classroom. They suppose how neutral processes are always already gendered. This spills up to new knowledge production movements, and all of their arguments, all of their answers to the app turn specifically rely on trans things being done in other spaces. Spade directly answered that above by talking about how it's a question of form, not content, in the way that these things are always postponed. Education, look, all their arguments depend on the education being received as being good. They drop that it isn't for 4 reasons. A, policy debate is only useful insofar as the results it leads to, which creates a double bind of either taking too long to become a policymaker or there is no impact. We're not going to stop a war by learning something in a space that's happening in 2 years or whatever, especially when they can't name a time frame on their own scenario. 2, fiat kills education. We don't learn intricacies of what occurs in government, how to get something done, or how people react, meaning it isn't real world and doesn't teach us how to make change. 3, extend the farm report. They said their education ties certain experience and gender significations onto our bodies, which removes the potential for escape and recreates gender assumptions. Check Spade above. 4, extend the representational politics. They said their education teaches us to believe that government will randomly help us in looking for change within ourselves to create our own practices. This is the method that leads to inaction for ourselves, allowing queer people to always get the short end of the stick. We need to gain control of biopolitical reality. They said switch side. A, if you're ready for on the app, you should be ready for the neg. B, it's exclusion. Switch side says present that people's identity embodiment doesn't matter in certain spaces, which leads to disillusionment. C, professionalism. That's Spade. The demand to engage problems within a certain normative form eliminates queer potential within the university. You demand our knowledge, but not the form of struggle. It comes with failure. Pathologize with being disrespectful and told to act in professional ways. This is switch side. It's still a form of silencing. TVA. It's first off, it's dogmatic. They have absolutely no evidence. Second, you should affirm the app as a counter-resolutionary method important for producing new forms of scholarship within debates. C, plan focus. They'll just read up 7 off with the counterplay, not engage the app itself. The model limits out the possibility for actual engagement and understanding the 1AC for extend pressing on 13, focus on political solutions, managerialistic that demands total control over disciplines. Only the 1ACs revolt against this form of debate can inspire self-experimentation, new forms of politics. Top no longer solely manifests within the fact that it disperses itself throughout society. 6, the new raw material productivity through creating organic flows that transform the world into pleasure through false opportunity created by chemical reactions. If we win this thesis, A, their announcement cap is outdated, meaning they're literally on unity. B, cap hacking the body less proletariat to shift pharmacopornographic media production from corporations to themselves. C, they all fail because it becomes a new flow, desire becomes co-opted to trigger a new organism. Permanently about the 1AC counters neoliberal subject formation, turns body into profits through hacking those technologies. The multiplicity of strategies are uniquely good for combating capitalism by creating multiple different types of strikes. The the alternative they're focused on exposing the system does nothing. There's nothing to create effective practice combative, which means they fail because revolution historically fail. B, exposing does nothing. Only the app creates a new form of combat. And the Escalante argument, the Escalante argument just literally says there are two genders that you can shift between. There are no other forms of expression according to it.
Let's see.
I guess case critique and homework.
Case. I gotta use the bathroom. I'll be back in a minute.
Madeline really asked me to bring her oatmeal raisin chocolate chip cookies.
What the? Oatmeal raisin chocolate chip? Is that a thing?
I don't know, but I came all the way to Iowa to. We're really close to my sister's college,
Oh.
so I've been given cookies to bring her, and she chose oatmeal raisin chocolate chip.
That sounds like
Terrible
ass.
choice, yeah. Most people hate oatmeal raisin. I like oatmeal raisin. But
Yeah, I don't mind it. There are better kinds of cookies.
There are
though.
definitely better kinds of cookies.
It's like
Oatmeal
what, she
chocolate
comes
chip
home
is
twice
good,
a
though.
year, and then she wants to be like.
Have you had that?
I have not.
Oatmeal chocolate chip. It's like
Oh,
a
that's
nice.
schlock.
The raisin part,
Yeah.
though, I can't.
I don't like raisins. Can't handle raisins.
They're just boomer grapes.
Right.
Boomer.
Looking at a grape. Okay, boomer. God, now I have to go on Twitter so I can tweet just a picture of a grape that says okay, boomer. They did surgery on a boomer.
Noah,
Yeah.
what ADHD meds are you on?
No.
I
What?
forgot mine, so.
Rip.
None. I thought you were on some, and I was like, oh, can I?
Let me copy. None. Do I want
See,
Madeline
I
to come
bet
in
someone
and
at
have
this
her?
tournament is selling Adderall, but I don't know who.
Damn. Should my sister come in an hour, or should I try to figure out sometime tomorrow?
I don't know where we're gonna be in now. I mean, probably here. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not.
Okay.
Especially because we're taking the lift to the hotel anyway.
All the shit I have for her is in the van. But I can probably do it. Madeline can just drive us to the hotel.
But yeah, I think we do that. That's true.
not weird, because
I don't think so.
you never debated.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. I'm stealing prep. I just want you to know that. Because we know that I contribute so much to the 2NR. I just really am on board.
So case, K, framework?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. The Hansen evidence misgendering them is probably bad, but also it says that, like, the evidence says that all girls are heterosexual, which is really fucked up, so you should probably just scratch it from the vote because it's baggage that neither of us want. Okay. Okay, well, we can see the permutation is a test of competition. We're not going for it. There's no offense to any of the, like, binary gender stuff. It's a reason to argue not the team. The interpretation that topical F must reduce DCS or FMS debate is a game no matter what the round correlates to a winner loss or topicality is the only question of is there is a predictable role for competition. They have no defense to the ballot. They have no defense to the debate as a game, so the ballot can only be an endorsement of a it can't be an endorsement of a political strategy, which means voting F doesn't solve anything. But voting negative advocates for a model debate premised off of rigorous clash and negative division of negative ground. The competitive nature of debate overdetermines our research practices and advocates towards what's best to win around rather than real world solutions, which means teams take anything they can get to the margins, which is going to be really big offense in the counter interpretation. But they have conceded that the interpretation solves the AF, which is a really big framing issue. Switchside means that we can have a more in-depth discussion of their politics. All of their offenses garnish off of the ability to talk about their topic in debate, which is definitely solved by the combination of topical affirmatives and reading the affirmative on the negative. For instance, the TVA that the United States federal government should end all their commercial system for military sales to Mexico is a queer introduction in the foundation of security dichotomies could incorporate the topic that they read without all the framework stuff and allow for a more specific discussion of security practices in Mexico and how they specifically affect queer people. And then the negative can make arguments about how gender hacking is a prerequisite to that engagement, or how the U.S. engaging with gender or queer folks is bad. That opens up for way more access to the lit base and creates a way more in-depth discussion. They have no offense. Why all of that needs to be in the 1AC, which means you should presume that all of this can solve. Their only answers is that the switch side is a form of silencing. That's obviously not true. Just because they can't read all of their arguments all the time isn't silencing. They haven't made any arguments about why they couldn't read every single iteration of every argument they wanted. They made it in the 1AC in some form of debate on the affirmative and negative, which solves all of their offense. And the argument that they made with TVA is that the people would just read 7 off and not engage. That's completely untrue. There's tons of specific arguments, including critical arguments that people could make against the Mexico app, as well as policy arguments. But those the debates are good because they allow for teams to be prepared, which the counter-interpretation does never do. So even if the level of clash is not what they want, it's still more specific than in the world of the counter-interpretation, which I'll get to later. The 1AR didn't go for a single piece of unique offense. The silencing just that isn't unique at all. Trans people can fuck shit up all the time if they want, but they don't have to be assimilated. All the arguments I made above, all the arguments I made above prove that if debate is a game, it's best for them to read a topical app. There's tons of innovative advantages that they can incorporate into revolution ideas and to do literally all of their scholarship on the negative, which so literally every single piece of offense that they go for, they have not made a single reason why any of these discussions are intrinsic to debate. If the 2AR comes up with any offense that wouldn't be able to be discussed in debate, they have no unique reason why that couldn't be participated in a lecture or outside of the debate. There's tons of trans spaces. But debate can allow for most of those discussions. They have conceded the limits to set that the counter-interpretation explodes limits, which sacrifices depth of argumentation and predictable stasis point for prep, even if absent their model might be a good idea. And we could case this, it completely destroys negative prep, especially when it's literally just any response to the resolution. They conceded the case list that people, that literally any critical author that's slightly critical of the United States is suddenly topical ground, which means that people never engage with apps because they are forced to always go for generics that never link because they've conceded that the debate is a competitive game. People take that to the margins and go for advocacy that literally don't defend anything, and they can just get up and say the state is bad or that capitalism is bad and sit down and don't require a method because it's a response to the resolution that completely wrecks in-depth limits, which links to all of our offense. It also makes the game completely unplayable because the app would just win every single round because they can cut a billion apps because there are a billion apps and use litbase on the very edge of the topic to respond to the resolution, which is obviously a terrible model for debate. All the education stuff doesn't matter because we both agree that debate is a game, which is a conceded 1AR argument, which means it's only a question of the best model for debate. The binary resolution stuff isn't offense. Lit doesn't check, and there's no specific advantage to the body being tied to arguments that they've conceded that is incorporable and that can be incorporated in topical debates. They've also conceded that limits are key to clash, which is better for their method because all of their arguments about how we need to tie the body to the arguments, but only topical debate as how to maximize that potential by educationally engaging with arguments in the first place, because there is a selective case list that forces us to be prepared to answer these affirmatives instead of always just lose when we're negative.
Yeah.
Start prep.
How much?
410. Can you answer, can you extend each time to decide an answer and do the switch sides and stuff? I'll do the sound stuff.
have a really important announcement before the 2 AR starts. So,
You shoot your pants?
What?
You shoot your pants?
No. God damn it, Mr. Post. Okay, so in the men's restroom, there are two,
Why you sound like Henry
there are
Bond?
2 toilets right next to each other with no stalls and no toilet paper. Just 2 toilets just sitting right next to each other.
So you just like take a shit in the open.
Wait, there are no like doors?
No doors.
That's the
No
app.
Just
So offensive.
2 bros taking a shit with no toilet paper.
Wow, so you hate gay people. God.
Well, I'm not gonna kink shame, but like.
Did you take a picture of some head or not?
No, but I'm
You
going
have to.
I didn't have my phone with me. Anyways, that was my announcement.
This is my announcement. Wait, I actually have an announcement. Okay.
What is it? It's an emoji.
And a raisin.
A what?
Caleb wasn't here.
I wasn't.
It's okay.
It's because grapes.
Isn't it a mood?
It's because grapes are
Raisins
no
are
raisins are
Raisins?
boomer grapes.
Boomer grapes?
They're boomer grapes.
I don't know. I called my dad a boomer yesterday.
Start calling Oscar OC.
So it's time.
Oh, my dad was like, you said the word fuck in your judge philosophy, so therefore all your credibility is lost. I'm like, okay, boomer.
Okay, boomer.
It's gonna be the best, most high quality recording ever.
Okay, so it's
Oh yeah, this is all.
It's gonna be case,
Mhm.
and then the framework.
Okay,
Yes.
sweet. I'm good.
All right. Everyone else good?
Yes.
Modern capitalism coheres itself through the control of signifiers and synthetics meant to dictate life, sexuality, and gender. These codes of life are held hostage from queers deemed weird or to weird abnormal. Use them through its project of constant sexualization from pornographic industries, pornify or objectify bodies deemed unworthy of biopolitical life. This leads to impacts of racialization and othering. A 1% risk in where case disrupting pharmapornographic complexes means that you vote F. Our project in gender hacking breaks around the pharmapornographic complexes by reclaiming control over gender signifiers like hormones or hormones for our own usage. By doing this, we disrupt pharmapornographic industries by removing their ability to control who has access to certain signifiers and disrupting processes of pornification. The fact that there was no state good debate coming out of the tone our proves that means like you're going to default to all of our offense on the still all of our offense on the state being bad, which I will do more work on the framework flow. It also means that we have a 100% risk of solving the impacts of pharmapornographic capitalism, which greatly outweigh their impacts of fairness. The impacts on framework. Let's go to the framework flow. Top-level framing issue, the activity of debate and debaters themselves are not separate from the complex of pharmapornographic capitalism that the status quo upholds. This means that the only thing that matters in debate is our orientation towards that vision and the solutions that we've offered to combat it. We've proven via the case debate that these capitalist institutions invade every aspect of our daily lives and create the space necessary for repression and subjugation of deviant bodies. This means that it's your job as a judge to vote for the team who offers the best form of resistance to pharmapornographic capitalism. The entire 1AC is a diss to their interpretation and proof that the policy education that they foster either reifies oppressive structures or does not address structural issues which make pharmapornographic capitalism so invasive. They say that debate is just a game, but it doesn't matter if debate is just a game because they couldn't give us a coherent answer as to why as to what the terminal impact of the game being destroyed was. We're going to resolve that for them. The only terminal impact is we lose education. We've proven the overview that the education they access reifies pornographic structures, and you should probably reject it. And extend our counter-interpretation. After disidentify with the resolution, disidentification is a process of association with the subject in an alternative and subversive lens. We disidentify with the resolution by questioning the basis of arms sales and or merits. The method we engage in is tied to the arms industry, but views it in a different lens. We have two net benefits. First is embodied in politics, a process of disidentification that occurs when gender hacking is directly tied to our bodies and creates possibility for material movement. And second is trans pedagogy, by centering trans body and trans experiences and general as means for education and knowledge production. We create the possibility for radical trans activism, which will move behind the steel process of pornographic institutionalism. These are two independent reasons why to prefer a counter-interpretation. We'll prove that the standards the NEC offered have no impact and contribute to pornographic reification of debate, which means that
authors who write about disidentifications in terms of the arms industry themselves, which means that literature checks any of the limits claims that they say that the kind of interpretation offers no form of clash, but extend the case of off-case arguments that they could have read clash in our model. The debate looks like state bad versus state good debates or counter methodology debates on proving the ground debate until we see why those kinds of debates are key to certain forms of micropolitical resistance, which when conceded through the debate, which means that you should prefer it. On the TVA, the TVA can't solve it doesn't lead to a discussion of the app. This proves that the conversations like ours are impossible under the next interpretation debate, which is silencing an independent reason to reject our model. And the TVA doesn't lead to a discussion of the app. They literally concede in the 2 and R that the Mexico app doesn't engage in gender hacking, and there are 2 other reasons. First is the planned focus. They said if we read the TVA, they just hit us with 6 or 7 off and not engage the app, which means that our education forward within the debate space. And 2 is a professionalism. This debate talks about how trans people are forced to package their scholarship into certain palatable forms to make sure cis people are comfortable. This is fucked up and creates self-hatred, and all of the pornographic offense applies to the TVA. Let's go to Switch side. There are 2 framing issues on Switch side. Switch side. First, they dropped the idea that they are ready to debate us on the other side, so which makes that there's no reason that they shouldn't be ready to debate us now, and the professionals decide even if they're right about all the content being encompassed in the one they say they're wrong about the form. They think we should just engage with rules like any other person, ignoring how ideals of rules are inherently gendered. I can't separate myself from my queerness, so telling me that I should just move to another space is kind of fucked up. Yeah. So it's a debate is a form of tokenization that acts in respectable ways while neutralizing anything non-negative.
Pleasure as always. I mean, one of the time we've debated.
Right.
And just.
Do we come for you?